Hey everyone, it's Skiesti. Today we'll be looking at a roughly 3.2k SR game. This player said that they struggle with decision making and tunnel visioning on tasks. Ideally, they'd like to improve at decisions and movements. While I was watching their game, I noticed that they'd benefit most from learning to be more proactive. So starting out with team composition, you've got Mercy Lucio, which means you're gonna have pretty low healing. However, you've also got Ball, Hog, and Soldier, who can all kind of self-sustain. Your default pocket is going to end up being Ashe ideally. You probably want to be positioning behind the blue box on your left to reduce enemy sightlines, especially when you don't know the enemy composition quite yet. Because your soldier is taking a more aggressive angle and has more line of sight on the enemy than Ashe does right now, you probably want to be playing with him until he drops off the high ground, and then your Ashe has a better sightline, so you're going to want to go to her. She's also keeping the high ground, so another reason to be with her. This is a nice res on Ashe using cover, but be careful about reses being dynamited because Ashe players will mostly always go for that. You should probably stay with Ashe here instead of going to Soldier on the high ground, and I mostly say that for a couple of reasons. I understand that you want to be pocketing from high ground, and while that's normally okay, in this case, Ashe could have moved out of your range and you might have been put in danger when you tried to GA over to her. I'd maybe suggest these positions here instead. Alright, so this is kind of a weird situation here. So, you didn't need to drop off high ground to heal Ball. You could have reached him from where you were, and if you had done that, then you would have had Guardian Angel available once you get dynamite pressure onto you. However, because you're going back to the high ground, you should try not to fully commit since they're starting to add pressure onto your soldier on that high ground, so it's a bit more dangerous for you to be there. Ideally, to prevent this burn, you wouldn't have fully committed to going back to the high ground, and you would have just dropped off temporarily with Angelic Descent and then Guardian Angel back up as necessary. Although I will say, when you're doing this maneuver, you do have to watch out for their Hanzo, who is taking that left doorway. Although you're worried about taking additional damage after burn and dying from it, you should still be helping Soldier with his burn damage by dropping off the high ground in a similar manner to what I just mentioned. Should be following Soldier here to challenge the Hanzo off the high ground. So this Guardian Angel isn't necessary. All it does is pull you out of position for no reason and almost gets you killed by Hanzo. Ashe still has a sightline to kill Ball here, and Soldier/Lucio can finish it if she really can't. So Ball is going for Mega in server, which means that you don't have to worry about him. Instead, help your Ashe retreat since she is still being pressured. Try not to turn your back on Ashe when you're getting out so that you can see what she's planning on doing. If she's committing, you should commit with her. If you commit, she doesn't burn to death, but because she does, you don't have res to bring her back. If you were with her, you could have prevented the death, and the fact that you didn't have res off of CD wouldn't have even mattered, because she would have still been alive. You should play with Soldier for Visor on the left side when you're starting to re-engage this fight. You probably don't need Valkyr as well. I know it's tempting because you've been holding on to it for a long time, but I think it ends up being unnecessary. Setting back up with your DPS on the high ground is good after your tanks are backing up and done cleaning the fight. Watch Guardian Angel and potentially standing in the open when they have snipers, especially when they make the Widow swap. You really don't want to get caught off guard with that. I don't really mind that you don't help your Soldier here because Hog takes his place and needs more assistance now that Soldier has fallen back. You can help Hog first, and then Soldier if he still needs it. This shit is kind of weird going back to your team. You could just crouch to get down in Valk instead, and when you do Valk, try to play less in the open and more around cover instead. I think if you crouched instead of G8 initially, you would have had a better perspective on where your team needs help, and they need help main. But your beam lingers too long on Hog when he doesn't really need it, so watch out for that. I know you probably want to res here, but you still have 4 seconds on it, and waiting in that spot is really dangerous because of the hog on the left. You should move more behind cover instead near the doorway. Playing in this doorway makes it harder for the hog to try to aggress on you, and you won't have to be forced onto the point or into enemy sightlines. I'm sure you know this, but probably should have taken the top of the airship with Soldier much earlier here, especially since your Ashe really didn't need help. There's not really reason to fall off the high ground. You could have just retreated to the right side, which is much safer for you. And it probably would have prevented getting hooked since you'd already be on the other side of the doorway near your spawn. Even though Ashe decides to drop off the high ground, which I'm not sure why, but you could have either waited for the team to regroup or met her under by taking the right side doorway. Ideally, you want one of your DPS to take the airship because, I mean, it's second point Gibraltar. But because they don't, and Soldier is aggressing while your Ashe is staying back, it's good to be playing with him instead. Be careful about GA sightlines, though, because you almost end up dying to their Widow trying to get to him. I'd encourage you to look for your Ashe a bit more, because almost the entire time that you're with Soldier, you can't tell where Ashe is because you're not looking around enough. Consider bulking earlier, probably around this point here. Lucio is dead, you're the only healer left, and playing for survivability is a good use of Elk. You can also get the benefit of extended beam range to help Soldier from a safer position because, I'm not gonna lie, watching this terrified me. Since the fight is over and no one is in immediate danger, you can wait out Balk and heal once it's done to start gaining ult charge toward your next ult. I know you don't have a lot of time on the clock, but it's just little things like this to think about, especially if they end up pushing further. Since your hog is contesting cart, you're not the one that needs to do it. You can sit with Soldier on the high ground instead. In cases like this, try to be behind your DPS so that you don't end up in situations where you're between the enemy and your team, but you're the one that's in danger. Watch out for standing too close to doorways and potentially giving them a line of sight on you. Try to help Soldier from a slightly safer position, so hugging walls or standing a little further back. This res isn't really a priority, but I guess I can respect that it's probably for the stat pad. However, Lucio can come back fast, and in normal situations, it's best to focus on helping the people alive as you're their only support. Switching over to attacking, you've got the same compositions, your priorities don't really change.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Watch enemy sightlines here on the high ground. Remember to play cover since you're not exactly behind anything when you're pocketing your DPS on the cart. Try not to be so far around the corner. If you played a bit further back, you're less likely to get pulled by Halt. Instead of following Soldier, who I assume was trying to deal with the Tracer, try to assist Ashe with taking high ground instead, since she's still pushing it, and honestly, this doesn't do anything. Both you and Soldier being here doesn't really get anything done. This is a good res, since they don't have a sightline on it despite it being out in the open, but it could have been prevented by helping Ashe with high ground initially. So that's kind of where the proactive part comes in a little bit more. These proactive movements or these different decisions earlier on that makes things later on much easier for you. And I will say that not having to res this would have also put you in a better place for when Soldier takes the high ground as well. And after Balk gets the health kit, you can look to heal him a bit more before he takes the high ground, since Ashe is still getting set up mostly. And thinking about being proactive with this, if you had healed him a bit before, you could commit better with Ashe on the high ground and letting her keep that position, especially when the Tracer comes to challenge her. When you pop Valk, you could go toward Lucio and res Ashe with his help and then fly down main to help tanks in your cart instead of aggressing on the pocketed Hanzo. It's okay to pressure snipers off high ground, but because you're running Mercy Lucio, I really think that there's more important things for you to do with this Valk, and it's even more important that you help your team. Once your team starts walking up, since you have Orisa instead of Ball now, you should probably focus tank healing a bit more, especially when they're pushing. This part here could also benefit from juggling beams and working on healing priority. Since Hog is pushing the middle high ground, you can't safely help your Orisa. I'm not really sure that you could have done much for her here because she's on the low ground, you are on the high ground. You are pretty much in danger no matter where you're stepping here, so kind of just puts you in a rough position. For the rest of this game, they end up swapping onto Ana, so I'm not going to go too far or into that part at all, and that's where the review is going to end here. I really hope that this was helpful and that you can carry this over into your next games. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time.